Welcome everybody. I'm Jeff, and this is Coffee and Consoles, and we are exciting today to see some new stuff, a tech preview. And as always, I'll give you a disclaimer that it's not shipping yet, so if something is completely crazy, then don't mind. That's why it's not released yet, but it's very close, and I think it's in pretty good shape. I think you're going to be really stoked. These are things we've been waiting for quite a while, so I think you will enjoy it, and it will help you tremendously to use the stuff, the physical knobs and faders that you already have in a much better way, however your use case. So I would encourage you to if you have something to say, certainly either chime in or you're welcome to pile on into the chat. Gil is around. Thanks for Gil to be here to answer questions. And if there's something that we want to bring into the discussion, we can. So that's perfectly valid. If you've not been here before, welcome. I've got this system here is an S4. So I've got a 16 fader S4 with options and goodness, but we're going to certainly talk to both S4 and S6, and the vast majority of everything I'm going to show you, I will kind of explain the differences, but in most cases, it's very, very similar on both systems. So there's not really any concern that it doesn't works one way and doesn't work the other way. Okay. Let's see what else. Yeah, if you've got something to interject, please do. I'm gonna go through probably at too fast of a pace, but if something doesn't make sense, then just stop me, because I probably had too much caffeine. So we're gonna start. What I think I'm gonna do this time is I want to give you an overview first, and I have a Keynote addiction, so we're gonna start in Keynote. So what I want to do first is I want to just kind of lay out what we've got, right, to show, and then we're going to spend most of the time actually physically showing you the specific maps. Okay. In addition to maps, there's a couple other goodness things I want to show you that I think are pretty interesting. This idea of attention presets, and then some more nice stuff for quickly controlling the display module. So I want to show you a little bit of extra stuff in addition to but we'll spend most of the time on the maps, because that's really the most significant thing. Okay, so let's set it up. So right now on S4, S6, your only real capability with regard to creating a truly custom mapping and an orientation of controls for parameters is in expand faders. And so if you're familiar with that, basically the idea of bringing control of a reverb or multiband down to the faders, and that popping up when you hit expand mode or auto expand. So that's kind of really all you can do today. And that has some limitations as well, which we'll get into some of the details and how we've expanded that capability as well. So I'm going to lay out pretty high level what we've got and what we're going to show with regard to custom maps. And custom maps affects not only faders, but it affects knobs as well. Okay, so this is very important. I'm going to take you through kind of three buckets, and the first one is master module. And I'm specifically referring to the adjacent encoders on the sides of the master module, and whether you're grabbing something to control an EQ, a dedicated EQ, the magenta color, or more commonly, or more, I would say, important in this use case that what I'm going to show you, the teal view, which is insert parameters, right? So that could be it could be a channel strip, it could be a harmonizer, it could be a crystallizer, it could be a noise reduction, it could be any possible thing under the sun of thousands of plugins that work on the platform. Okay, so that's the first one, is master module. We're going to look at actually creating some maps and show you how that works, and directly from those adjacent encoders. The second one is the 32 knob matrix, right, which is 8x4. And that is either in a local capacity, either a local expand or a on attention. And you can see, again, I've got a dedicated section I've got two attention knobs, right? And normally down an EQ, but I'm going to show you some new cool stuff where you can instantly change those to any view. And then last but not least, faders. And faders get a lot more interesting because you've got more control and more pages and some other goodness in there we're going to look at. Okay, so those are the big buckets for the maps. A couple other quick things I'm going to set up, and then we'll kind of dig into it. There's a new QuickJump, and the new QuickJump is trying to simplify the process of controlling any kind of display function. And so what do I mean by that? Well, zooming in and out, so waveform zooms on the channels, waveform zooms on the master meter, for example, the configuration of the master or the post meter, meaning, you know, how many actual meters do you have, the particular presets for the channels, the particular presets for the masters, all that good stuff in a very, very concise kind of window, and just kind of instantly accessible. Okay, I want this view, boom, right? And not having to dig into a lot of menus that are kind of cumbersome. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. The last thing that we're going to look at is a little bit experimental, but I think it's beneficial. And I like to call it attention presets. And the concept of the attention preset is, you know, here's my normal use case. If I attention something, I kind of want EQ and dyne. And that's kind of my basic flow, right? That's me. That might not be the same as, you know, as you or whoever else works on the console. So I'm trying to make it simple for people to quickly get a function view on the attention knobs, and that's what this is all about. So maybe I want dyne and EQ, I want to flip those quickly, or I want sends quickly, or I want, you know, sends on the expand faders. And so those are the things that I think this is going to facilitate pretty quickly. So that's the idea. We'll get into some detail, kind of how that works and what you can do with it and how you can customize it. And that's, I think, where it really gets powerful, because I may not want the same things that you want. Okay, so that's the setup. So let's dig into maps. Okay, we're going to start small and we're going to build it out and go kind of bigger from there. And I've arbitrarily picked some plugins. They may not be the exact plugins you use. It does not matter. All of the concepts I'm going to set up with regard to individual parameters and peers and switches, it applies to every plugin on the planet, whether it's Avid or third party. So don't be concerned if I'm not using your favorite plugin. So let's start with something super simple. I'm going to bring up a couple things that I think are really important just to get into it. We're going to start with the master module. Okay. Again, I've got an S4, and we have folders, we have VCAs, we have all kinds of fun stuff, but it doesn't really matter for this particular example. We're going to start by going to this drum loop track, and I've got various processing on this. And we're going to start with the Arousor, just for the purposes of having something to map, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to access the master module, and you want to make sure that you are on the home page, and that's what we're looking at right now. You want to attention the track that you want to operate on, so we want to attention drum loop. And just to be very specific, because this is different on S6 and S4, on S4, I also have to hit focus before I choose the function, right? On S6, you have a process module, you do not have to hit focus. I just want to make that clear, because that was not so clear before. In my case, I'm attentioning the drum loop, and the track is focused, and I'm going to go into inserts. Okay, I'm seeing top level inserts. So I flipped it, so I've got the first insert being Arousor EQ37. There's an SSL 9K, and then there's a Valhalla plugin. Okay, so on the actual touch screen, I'm going to go and touch inserts. Okay, this is the stack of inserts, and if you look at this, we're looking at the actual signal chain. So those are the ins. Okay, I need to push into one of the inserts to be able to say, hey, I want to map Arousor. So I'm going to push into Arousor. It displays out the parameters, and then you can also see that it broke out all of the inserts in the signal path as interleaves colors, just to kind of give you a better visual representation. Okay, so but you have to access the master module to see what you're going to map. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the custom button, which is down here, either the switch or the touch screen, either way. And up pops a dialog that basically, it gives you a little bit of information, and it says, hey, do you want to do the master module? Do you want to do the 32 32 expand, or you want to do the faders? So it also illuminates, as you can probably see, it illuminates the purple LEDs all over to say, hey, touch one, basically, right? So I'm going to touch an encoder on the master module. And now it gives you more questions and says, what specifically do you want to do? Well, in this case, I'm actually going to do master module. So very specifically, these knobs right here, okay? And I want to, and in this case, this particular plugin, you're probably saying, well, it's just a compressor. I just need threshold, ratio, attack, release. But it's actually got a lot of other really neat stuff in there with saturation and blend and sidechain. So I want to have what I want to have, and it may not necessarily correlate to the green dynamic stuff, right? And so we'll get into more details there. So we're going to do some really basic stuff here. In my case, let's just say I want, threshold, ratio, attack, release. It's like an 1176, so there's no threshold, there's input. So I'm going to touch, there's input. The nice thing about all the maps now is as you do it, you can interact with it, right? I think you probably remember if you've done an expand fader map, it's really a drag when you're making it. You touch it and it actually, you cannot see, you will not get feedback in the plugin until you finish the map. That is not the case anymore with custom maps. So I actually really like that. So I just want to do threshold, ratio, attack, and release. Okay. So that is my concept of this is I want the stuff that I want closest to me on this column. And that's just my kind of take on it. Okay. I'm going to go over to the left column and I'm going to add, let's say we want to add output. I want to add let's say the blend, the mix, and maybe dry trim and maybe the cutoff, okay, for the detector. We're going to stop there. That's just a very, very simple map. And I'm going to hit done, press done. Okay. And so now what I've created is just specifically a map specifically for the master module on this plugin. So anytime I use Arousor, it's going to go and give me this, kind of input, ratio, attack, release. And any associated things in the plugin are going to automatically be mapped. And we'll talk about this kind of as we go through it. So for example, in this plugin, if you go to any section, there's bypasses, right? For like, I just touched to something else. There's bypasses for every section. And let's go back into the plugin. So I can, go to the cutoff. I can go to the mix, right? So that's what those switched functions are. It depends on the manufacturer as to what is associated with the associated switched functions. Okay. We'll get into more details about about some of the, what we call peer parameters in a second. But I just wanted to show that. Okay. So let's transition. Well, let's do two things here first. I just want to kind of compare this a little bit. If I go and press Dyn, and these are all the different inserts on the track. If I press Dyn, I'm still controlling. Well, actually, in this case, this is a different plugin, but I'm going to just cycle through, and we're going to get to the. Going to cycle through. I'm just doing a cycle on Dyn to get back to the dedicated dynamics view, right? So the reason I'm doing this is I wanted to show you that this is a poor representation. It's a really flimsy amount of control for this kind of plugin because it's not just a compressor, it's a whole saturator, and it's got a lot more goodness. So it's kind of a drag to control this from green mode is really kind of what I'm getting at, okay? So there's a benefit to using the insert parameters view. There's even a new preference that we're gonna look at that allows you to, when you click in Pro Tools, to automatically bring up the insert parameters view instead of the EQ or the Dyn view, which I think is really beneficial, okay? So let's go back to Arousor for a second. We mapped it. Now, I don't have to, I'm not worried about this right now, right? I've only made changes to the center section, and therefore I'm good to go. I got my input, ratio, attack, release, and then this stuff. If I wanna keep going and tweak my map further, I can certainly go and hit custom. And again, I have to tell it, because I'm going back in, I have to tell it, okay, you're making a new map, are you changing the map, or are you just gonna edit what you've already done? So I'm gonna say, no, I'm gonna go back to my master module map, and I'm just gonna add a page. So under page functions, I'm gonna simply hit add, and it just added more columns as you would see the columns stack up in the master module, okay? So maybe now I want a chunk of saturation, right? The saturation stuff in here is great, especially with the new version 3. So I can do sat, I can do second harmonic, And then maybe over here, I want, some of the control of the side chain. So like boost, cut, freak, and bandwidth I can put over there. And then maybe I want to have control of the opto modes, whatever, right? Totally up to you. Hit done. When I default in, I'm going to get this, right? I'm back on page 1. Okay, pretty simple. To get to page 2, multiple ways to do this. If you just want to get to saturation stuff quickly, you basically dock that column, and there's your sat, there's your harm, and actually you need to open up expert mode if you want to actually see some of this, right? So there's your saturation, your second harmonic, and the pre and post. So there's some stuff nested under the UI a little bit, but conversely, I'm going to go back to the kind of the bread and butter stuff. I can also just hold down Shift on the master module and use any of these lower switches to it's going to change both pages at once, right? You see that? Okay, so that's already been in there. That's just a little bit of how to get around. Okay, so that's the start. That's the basics, right? Let's dig into a little bit more detail in the master module and show you a dedicated EQ map, which is a little bit different. Okay. So same concept. I'm going to swipe over my function scroller and I'm going to go into EQ. This is an EQ37, so obviously an Avid plugin, but I want to modify, just to be clear, the dedicated EQ map, the magenta map, is always kind of it's a representation, and I think the expand view is very, very good. It really follows D command D control. It's very kind of intuitive, but some people here don't necessarily maybe like the switched frequency and Q, so we can actually split some of that out and kind of approach it in a different way. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, before we do that, I actually already have some stuff here. I want to blow it away. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to hit custom, and I'm going to basically go back into here, and I'm going to say, you know what? Let's just do a factory all. I actually did some work on the EQ previously when I was messing with this prior to today. So I'm going to blow it away. And so now we should be back to, if we just touch EQ, we should be back to what you've seen, what you've seen before, which is high mid gain, freak, and then if I press cell, I'm in Q, right? And then if I get high gain, so there's 2 bands, and the freak is toggling between freak and Q, if you're familiar with that. Okay, so that's the default, is kind of where we're starting. So let's actually go in and make some tweaks to what, again, this is my take on it. The beauty is that you can do whatever you want, and I think it's a really cool thing. So we're going to go back into custom, and I'm going to go, we're going to touch the master. We're going to say master module, and we are now a blank slate. So what do I want to do here? Well, the first thing I want to do personally is I think I want to always have access to filters kind of quickly. So I can grab, and I'm going to explain this in just a second, but just stand by. I'm just going to say toggle knob right now. I'm going to throw a high pass filter over here, and I'm going to throw a low pass over here, because I like to have filters accessible. That's just me. And the second thing, I want to have discrete gain frequency Q controls, and that's just me. And so what I'm going to do on the first page is, whatever band that you want access to, let's just do the high band here. So I'm going to go high gain, and I'm going to touch, and I'm going to do high freak. And now what I'm going to do is, instead of saying toggle knob, which is that modal switched function, I'm basically going to say, no, just always give me freak here. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to say high freak. No, always give me Q here. Okay. So what did that do? Well, it just now gives me discrete gain. It gives me discrete freak. It gives me discrete Q. Right. And that's what I wanted. So let's go into Bell. Let's crank the Q. Let's roll the low pass off a little bit. Let's do some cutting. Obviously I can pop in or out. Those switch functions you're familiar with are already still there. Let's just do one more chunk. Low, right? So low gain, boom, low freak. I specifically want freak. Low Q, I'm going to use low freak to get the Q, right? It's what they call a peer parameter, but I don't want it on the peer. I want it pulled off. So I'm going to hit done. Now, check this out. At least on the first page, I have access to my gain frequency Q. Let's pop it in. I got that preference on so that it's popping up, which is kind of fun. So there's that band. And actually, let me turn that off. It's slightly annoying. Let's not do an auto show. Get that for a second. Okay, back into it. There we go. So you got discrete Q, right? There's your boost and cut. There's your enable. There's your low pass, right? There's your high pass. And again, this is just the way I set it up. You do not have to do this. But the beauty is you can totally carve out what makes sense. There's the enable and there's shelving versus parametric. Okay. So that is customizing the dedicated EQ mapping, but specifically on the master module. Okay. So we kind of got really into a specific workflow. Now, just to be very clear, all of that change that I made has no effect on if I had a fader map or if I had obviously my 32 map. I personally, and it's just my opinion, I personally really like this map. I think this is really good. I don't think I would actually change it for dedicated EQ in my case. I'm just gonna null a couple things here quickly. So I actually really like this particular map, and that's fine. I don't have to customize it. Yep.
Jeff, got a question came in. Can you show again how to reset the map back to default?
Yes, absolutely. So there's two, and I probably clarify because that's actually really important. So again, everything that you're doing for these maps, you've got to target on the master module. And you can see that right there. So if I'm going to go and reset my Arousor map, I've got to touch the function block for Arousor. Let's go back to EQ and reset it. I have to touch EQ. I have to hit custom. And I have to target the map that I want to work on. Again, I'm touching the master module to tell it I've been working on master module. Now, this is where you're either editing, adding pages, whatever, or you're doing a factory. Factory says clear the existing map in the existing view. Factory all says blow the whole thing away, meaning if I had multiple pages, remove all the pages, basically tear it all down. So I'm just going to do a factory. And it says, do you really want to do this? Yes, I do want to do this. And this only affected the maps, the parameters that were assigned to the adjacent encoders on the master module just for dedicated EQ. Okay, so that should make sense. So you're back to kind of what the euphonic style, switched Q and freak, if that makes sense. Okay. And again, those changes, no bearing on this. This whole stuff over here is still exactly what it was. And in my case, I like it. If you don't, you can customize this too, which I think is great.
So real quick, can you clarify also that when you're doing those changes and you're doing it when you go in and you touch for the master module, you're telling us that it doesn't affect the expand module. It doesn't affect the fader map, but it also shouldn't affect the actual strip knobs that are not affect, right?
It does not affect.
Yeah, because what you're actually building is what we call internally a 4x2.
That's correct.
Which is what you're seeing on the master module. And if you're familiar with Avid Control or the Avid Control app, that's like the channel strip mode where it's 4x2, 4 on each side. Yep. And that is a totally independent map. So, I mean, even though the first choice, you're only having 3 different choices from the master module, from the expand knob module, or from expand fader module, there's actually 3 choices under the master module to do a 4x2, a 1x8, which is the single column up and down strip from the master module, or if you're on an S6 and you've only got a fader and a process module, which is relatively obscure, not a whole lot of people,
not so common, but
you can actually make what we call an 8x1, which is a single row 8 across, separate map for that.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a lot of power.
Right. Yeah. But that's the idea here is you can basically take this to the nth degree and build whatever you want in whatever view you're in. So I just wanted to clarify that as we kind of move forward here.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going to start. Let's jump now down to the expand, right? Let's jump into the expand knobs a little bit, and that would be essentially the 32 encoders, which is 8 by 4, right? 4 by 8. So let's just go back to the Arousor because I think it's a good reference. And we've targeted what we want to work on. We've hit custom. This time, we're not going to touch the master module. We're going to touch an expand bucket. Okay, that tells it that we're going to do, that 32 grid is what we want to do. Now we're going to build a expand knob view, right? That particular view, which is one of the most powerful, I think, of anything out there. So we'll do this. I'm going to do this really quickly, but again, this is my take on this particular plugin. The beauty is you can do whatever you want. So me personally, I want that consistency of kind of threshold, ratio, attack, release. That's just what I'm used to. So, and threshold in this type of plugin is input because it's like an 1176. So, so threshold, ratio, attack, release. Okay, so that's pretty simple. The next thing, it does not have to be you can do anything anywhere, which is great. So in my case, I usually put mix over here somewhere. So I'm going to put mix and dry trim over here. Okay, so mix. Dry trim is actually an expert param as well, so you can't see that right now, but it's in there. Trust me. So that's what I would do, and then I would have a column for SAT. Right, we'll expose SAT as well, so you can see that. So I would do SAT, and I would do second harmonics. Okay, so there's your goodness of Dave Durr inspired saturation. That's cool. And then you want to have detector sidechain stuff. So I would do that. Even though it's horizontal in the UI, I like it vertical. So again, that's going to be boost freak and bandwidth, right? Which is being exposed right now. So I would do boost, and I would do freak, and I would do bandwidth. Okay. So boost, freak, bandwidth, good stuff. What else? Well, you need output. Output is a good thing to be able to control. It would be nice to, one thing, and we'll get into this in the next more complex mapping, but if you had got more stuff, then you have the ability to swipe. So this is a relatively simple plugin, but if you've got something that's super complex, you can swipe pages. It's not a problem. I'm going to throw Opto up here. I'll show you that in a second. The attack mod stuff is great. The cutoff stuff is great. So it's obviously much more than just a simple compressor. Okay, that's, I think, fine. It's a fine place to stop. So I'm gonna hit done. We just worked on a 32, an expanded, essentially 32 parameter map on this track, which is currently viewing dynamics. I'm gonna view inserts. We're in insert chain. I'm gonna push into the Arousor, and I'm gonna hit expand. Now, I hit expand just to clarify, because there's so many different ways to use the console. I got to explain some of this. We are currently, if you look in the user settings, we currently have auto expand faders off. What does that mean? Well, this is not new, but it's important to understand that currently, if I hit expand, I still have access to my faders, right? In this case, there's percussion and loops or whatever. Maybe you're still doing some blends. You still want that. That's great. If that's off, you basically have to hold expand another, to get into a fader map, right? And we'll get into that in a little bit. But just to clarify, hey, why did the faders not pop up also? And that's why. I just wanted to lay that out because that's important. Okay, so back into the top level insert chain, Arousor, push in, hit expand, and boom, now I got kind of what I want, right? Which is input, ratio, attack, release. I got all my saturation stuff here is great. I got parallel blend, that's great. I got output. I can change into opto modes here, whatever, right? Attack mod, and then again the switched functions: kill the blend. Kill the saturation module, kill the cutoff. They're all logically mapped. Anybody that's any of the third parties that are, a lot of these do a really good job. Empirical Labs, Brainworks, they do a really good job of making an intuitive map. Now, couple kind of disclaimers. We can't make up for companies that have either terrible or no labels on their parameters. So that might sound ridiculous, but it's true. If you have everything labeled as the same parameter, there's really nothing we can do. If everything's blank, there's nothing we can do.
Hey,
if it's
Jeff, before you move too far forward, question. Does it require hitting expand to get to the maps? And I mean, you talked about the auto expand fader maps, but could you go back to that preference page and show where, depending on what you select in, that it can automatically expand versus having to do the 2 steps of selecting then expanding?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways to work. I'll show you another one that's very useful, very popular, and that is inserts selection. And insert selection says, if I push into any of these guys, it'll automatically bring me into that nice 32 map, right? And a lot of people like that. So if I push into Arousor, boom, I'm there, right? And I'm good to go. And then if I wanted to, if I had faders, which we're going to make in a second, I can then bring those up as well. Okay, that's an option, but that's a nice one. And that is, again, under the auto expand functions, insert selection will do that for you. Okay. And then when you, if you back out, you're in top level, you see the expand one off, right? So it's smart enough to know to do that. And that's what that did. Okay. So now this is great. A couple things. I'm going to actually segue into some other things. I'm going to start folding some other ideas in as we go here. So that's really cool, right? That idea, that map now, but I can get to that here too. So let me show you, let's just show you some other stuff that's fun. So we've got this thing and this concept that I called attention presets. And the idea was really, I want my meat and potatoes control of EQ and, maybe dyne, whatever, and we'll get into some more details there. But what if you quickly want to be able to say, you know what, right now, I really want to focus on the compressor or whatever. You have the ability to quickly recall a bank of different function views. So what I can do now is I can say, give me dyne down here, EQ up here. I can flip that, right, really quickly. Or even better, I can say, let me see inserts chain here because I really want to get into my cool Arousor map and throw my sends up here, right? So now I've got, in the attention zone, I've got threshold ratio attack release, right? I've got exactly what I built, which is what I want, how I want it, when I want it. I can bypass that, right? That's cool. I want to go back to my meat and potatoes. I just basically hit my first preset and jump back, and I'm in EQ and dyne, right? And I can have, basically conceptually, I've got a preset 1A and a 1B, and the 1B is just an inversion, right? So if I were to go here and say, I want this, but you know what, bring my sends down, I can have sends come down also. Cool, sends are being controlled. Now bring that down. And now I'm back into that, what I consider top inserts any is really what that is, right? Because I can then go into a different plugin in the signal chain. Okay, so we'll get more into more of this, but that's kind of the concept of the attention presets, which I think is going to be pretty cool. Okay, let's add to a little bit of faders into our Arousor. Okay, so you don't have to go into this view to add expand faders like you did before, right? So you can, but you don't have to. So let's just pop out. I'm going to hit back. It takes me out of expand. What you do have to do is make sure that you are, again, I'm going to collapse this real quick just so we can kind of show the workflow again. You do need to be in the specific function that you want to customize. Okay, what does that mean? Well, again, it means I am specifically touching Arousor on that function block, and I'm saying custom. And now I'm going to touch the faders. And now it's saying, oh, cool, he wants to make a fader map. And that's what that is, right? So it's not dependent like it was before on the actual 32. Okay, so that's important to know. Now, in the faders, again, you can do whatever you want, which is a beautiful thing. I'm going to do, let's just do 4 or 5 parameters. I'm going to do, again, I'm going to start with what I always do, which is basically the input or the threshold ratio attack release, right? And then touch a first fader. You got the first 4, okay? Add some more stuff. Maybe I really want the blends, so I'm going to do the dry trim and mix, right? Those are at the end. And then in the middle, maybe some saturation stuff, right? Sat. And if you can untouch if you need to, you can touch and untouch. You can touch a cluster of things and you can touch in. So I've got sat, second harmonics. Okay. Let's add a page. Let's add some more stuff. How do you do this? Well, one of the cool things with this now is not only do you have as many pages as you want, but you also always have, well, three things that I really like. While you're making it, you can make sure that you're getting what you want, right? Oh yeah, that is ratio. Oh yeah, that is the mix section. That kills the mix. You have a dedicated bypass button, which is great. This is always bypass right here. And you have unlimited pages. So I'm going to go to page action add. On the next page, you know, one thing that I think is kind of fun that I like to do is just have parallel parameters. What does that mean? Well, it basically means I don't care what page you're on. Let's add another page. I want to have kind of a consistent thing. Maybe I'm blending all the time. I don't care what page I'm on. I want to have that stuff right there. So page 2, it's there. Page 3, it's there. This is just my kind of take on it. You can do whatever you want. So let's get some of the sidechain. Let's do what? Boost freak bandwidth. That makes sense, right? And then cutoff and attack mod. That makes sense. Let's flip pages and whatever we've got left, right? So we can put the opto modes maybe, and you know, obviously you can duplicate things too, which I'll show you with the multiband, which I think is pretty cool. And I don't think I have output yet. Output's important. Maybe I'd put output on another page as well, but it's totally up to you. And we'll just do some duplicated stuff here. Let's just do sat in second as well. Okay. So you can duplicate parameters. You can have parameters that I consider parallel, which means, you know, I still want mix. I'm tweaking this. I still want mix. And that's kind of my concept of being able to have certain things that are always there, which I think is important. You always have bypass, which is really great. And you have as many pages as you want, which is awesome. And again, just to be specific, the manufacturer is going to associate a switched function. The cell and the in that are on the associated with the encoder are going to come down as select and mute, right? So anytime you're on in this case, a Arousor or a channel strip or a multiband, the mute is always going to be kind of the enable, right? The in, if you will. So that'll kill that section. That'll kill the harmonics. It'll take that out of the signal, right? Okay, so that's good to know. Hit done. Okay, now let's back up and show you kind of what we just did before. Arousor with the preference, which is called insert selection. I push it, it automatically takes me into expanded view, right? Makes sense? That's there. Mix, we know that, right? Because I don't have auto expand on, I have to hold expand. And then it brings me into this, okay? Totally up to you. If you don't like that, I'll show you the opposite. There's your pages. User 1, user 2 are your pages. Green is always bypass. You can see this is actually pretty nice now. We dim all the LEDs on the virtual LEDs and the desk when you bypass now, which is pretty cool. Page over, page over, page over. If you need to null something, you can, as always, you can use option, option touch, for example. Okay. Expand to come out. The opposite or the other option, totally up to you if you want to do it or not. Go into settings. I'm going to keep its insert selection on. I'm going to do auto expand faders. What happens now? Well, basically, when I push into Arousor, it says, hey, give me everything you got. Give me the 32 and give me the faders, right? And again, totally up to you. So I can pop out, I'm out. It takes me out of everything. I personally like the ability. I think the granularity is nice to be able to say whether you do it one way or the other way. That's just my opinion. Okay. Okay, so we are doing well. I've got way too much to show you, but that's okay. So let's look at a little bit more peer stuff. I think is kind of fun. And just to show you, it really kind of double down on that concept of you can put whatever you want wherever you want. And we'll do this. Let's switch over. Okay, let's do this. Definitely engage Gil if you got any questions while I'm going to go through this, but I'm going to dig in. I'm going to go into, this is a Brainworks SSL 9K. And the only reason I picked it is because there's just a lot of stuff in here, right? There's a lot of complexity and things that you could possibly map. And there's some good examples of peer maps. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do another fader map, but this one's going to be a little more complicated. So again, back to target the thing you want to work on. Right now, Arousor is targeted. So I need to target the 9K. There's the 9K. I need to hit custom. I need to touch the fader. Okay, boom. There's nothing there. If there was something there, again, concept of factory all, not a big deal. Okay, you can do that. So what is this? Well, it's compression, it's expansion, it's gating, it's EQ, it's harmonic saturation, it's gain staging, it's all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm just gonna again start kind of approach it and put some things in that make sense to me. So again, all of in this case now you're going to see more parameters than you did on one page, and you can swipe to kind of justify and kind of see what you want to see. But let's just say I want threshold, ratio, and release, and maybe I want blend also. So I'm gonna show you something here in a second. Let's just do this first. So threshold, ratio, release, and now let's get blend. So how do I get blend? Well, if I grab the comp high pass, again, this is what they call a peer parameter. So it says normally the select is going to toggle what the encoder does, but I don't care about that. I just want the comp mix discretely to be pulled off so that that's the little screw. You see the tiny little screw in the dynamic section? That's what that is. So I can do parallel, right? Threshold, ratio, release. That's your parallel. And then you could also just pull off the high pass, right? Just pull off the high pass discretely, right? And then if you want, some of the output and the virtual gain, some of that good stuff, you can get that. So let's. I'm gonna actually for this time I'm gonna do toggle knob. I'll explain this, and I'm also gonna do the input and the V gain. Okay. If you grab a bunch of them, you touch, it'll just cascade, kind of what you're used to right now. Okay. Let's add another page. So page action add. Let's add a little bit of EQ. So we're going to go into the, do we want filters? No, let's just start with low. That's fine. So this has got a couple different things on it. So this has the harmonic distortion on it, but I just really want low gain for right now. And I want, actually, I don't want that. That was a mistake. I want low freak. Okay. And then I'm going to do low mid gain map and low mid freak, which is here. And this time I want to pull these off. I want discrete controls. So I'm going to say I want specifically freak. I want specifically Q, right? So this is the concept I wanted to show you of the peer parameters of being able to pull this stuff off. Now I could go back. I just remembered because I forgot where they put this, but I could go back and say, you know what? I don't want virtual gain here. I actually want to be able to control the harmonic distortion. So I would go back into low gain and choose THD and overwrite the virtual gain, right? Does that make sense? So that you don't have to clear. Yes, I can do a clear touch. I don't have to clear though. I can overwrite. So now there's your little harmonic distortion screw, which is really fun if you want really just, really aggressive drums, right? So back to the next page. I specifically pulled off these parameters because I wanted the peer parameters pulled out. Okay. Well, let's just do one more and then we'll kind of go on to another example. I've got filters. I can add those to a different page, but let's just go to high mid gain and high mid freak. We're going to pull off just the frequency, and high mid freak, we're going to pull off just the Q. Okay. We'll hit done for right now. But obviously I can keep adding pages. I can go into there. I'm going to hit expand, hold down expand because I'm not in auto expand mode. And again, switched parameters. On the ratio, there's the enable disable for the whole dynamic section. You can change the release times, your blends, your harmonic distortion, your output. There's your output right there. You can see a little fader peeking through. And then you got discrete control over your gain frequency Q for, for your different bands, because you can pull those off. And then if you look at a specific, like the frequency, if you divide by 3, right, if this either starts at 215 or it starts at 68 hertz, right, there's your controls of that. So this is very deep. Almost every parameter brought down has an associated switched function, and you have insane amounts of control in a small amount of space and bypass. And I just wanted to show you an example of something that has a relatively high amount of complexity, and you get to choose how you want to map this, right? You want to add another page, you go to custom, you touch the fader, you go page add and say, hey, now I want some filters, right? So let's just do high pass, low pass real quick here. High pass, low pass, boom, right? And then have maybe parallel output here. Toggle knob is fine. Done. Okay, let's go back in. Last page, output. This is a peer parameter, right? Meaning the select is toggling the state of that parameter. Okay, there's your high pass, low pass, which have been enabled or disabled. There's your page. Okay, so that's one example of the fader component of the map. How we doing? We're doing good.
So I don't know where you're going next, but there's been some questions about, and you might want to get to it. I mean, if you've got some other examples you want to show, it's more kind of housekeeping stuff. So
okay,
how are they stored and where are these maps stored?
Yeah, no, those are really good questions because it's really important. Let's talk about that. Yeah, there's a lot of concerns. Okay, here's my note card. So here's the deal. We're kind of baby steps into this feature. What I mean by that is right now, every one of these maps that you create, master module, the 32, the 4x8 and the faders, everything gets stored in the Pro Tools session if you enable the option under the global settings that says, basically auto load custom knobs and fader maps from sessions, right? So everything you do will come back with the Pro Tools session if you tell it to, and that is literally that tick box right there, auto load custom knobs and fader maps from sessions. So that's the good news right now. The bad news is we don't yet have a mechanism to well, let me give you some more good news and I'll give you a bad news. The other good news is that as Gil was talking about, he was talking about the 4x2, right? That's the master module. We're talking about faders, all these different map styles. The really powerful thing now, and as we kind of take this forward, is these maps will work between S4, S6, but also on S1 dock U control systems. The only downside of that at launch is that you may have to copy an XML file over if you're not using the same computer, right? So under your user preference tree, I think it's user preferences, consoles, Avid S6, something like that. There's an XML, right? And that will get, if you're using U control surfaces on the same system that you're using S4, S6, it's fine. You can use that file. But otherwise you have to copy that file over to another rig for now, right? We're going to have better management of those XMLs in the future. So, but for now, anything that you create, and let me mention a couple of other things that are really important. And let's just do this. So the workflow, in my opinion, for now, do everything you need to do, right? Save as template. You're now parsing this off as a template file, that has all the goodness in it. And it is absolutely contained within there, and you start, make a new session from the template, and everything you've created is in there. So you're good to go. So that is today, and we're, like I said, we're going to improve the interchange of these formats I know there's already things for later the end of the year and things like that. But that's kind of where we're starting. Everything is 100% saved in the Pro Tools session, but you would need to do something like, again, save a session as, or save a template and work from that. And then again, beautiful thing of being able to use it not just on S4 or S6, but also U control systems But for now, if it's on a different workstation, you have to copy an XML file over. But you do have access now. Hey, this stuff that I just built that I showed you for Arousor on the master module, I can do the same exact thing from my dock in the other room, the other rig. So I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, so that's that. Any other things that are critical, Gil?
Let's see. So yeah, so basically, just to be clear, maps have to be built into the template or to the session.
Yes, that's today. Yes, correct.
And the other today, right?
Yeah, and the other downside, which you probably already assume, but I will say it because it's true. If you've already made fader maps in legacy versions, they're gone. We've redesigned the whole thing. The bad thing is you got to redo them. The good thing is they're far more powerful and they travel between U control and WS control. So hopefully this is the last time we do this, but it is great that you can use them in multiple systems now, and you've got unlimited pages.
So explain the workflow at this point, maybe. So like if you've got existing sessions, then how do we move things to those? Or is it just you're just going to have to rebuild in every session?
No. So okay, so what you could do. That's actually a really good question. So I just wanted to point out that the maps that you made previously will not work. Okay, you need to remap your specifically expand faders. Okay, you need to recreate them, but that's just. Again, there's more functionality here, a lot of good stuff. But I think to answer your question, you're asking, I've got an existing session I'm working on. How do I get the stuff into that? That's what I'm assuming what you're asking. Correct. What you can do is you can go into the global settings, and so shift settings, right? And there's a thing in here that says clear custom knob maps when session data clears. Turn that off, meaning open up your master session that has all your hard work in it, right? Make sure that pref is turned off. Close that session. Open the job you're working on now. That data will be sitting in Yukon. It will not be wiped. You open your session, and then you basically save, and you're essentially associating that with the session. So that is a valid way to get it there. So yeah. Real quick, let me just show this. We're running out of time, but I wanted to show this real quick. So again, I think it's kind of fun. Let's go to our, I don't know, what are we looking at here? Let's just go to look at some of our folders. And I'm going to jump down and look at some of our print folders. And there's just some print tracks right here. Just wanted to show a couple things really quickly with the display modules. So we can now go shift zoom vertical. And, if I wanted to actually see waveforms on the master module, I could just say, show me large waveforms. I could say, zoom in, zoom out, change the zoom factor. I could say, show me meters and waveforms. I can change the configuration. I actually want more rows or less rows. This is either the master or the post, depending on what you're using. I've got dedicated meter, dedicated master. I can change the normal channels. I want to change the channels to a split, kind of half and half. I want to zoom in or out quickly on the masters, right? Zoom way out, zoom way in. I want to go to a dual function view. There's a dual function plus routing view. There's a single function view. So it's a far more elegant way, I think, to quickly, and then let's go back to large meters, to change all of the display stuff, which can be a little bit tricky for some people to be able to navigate around. Okay.
Yes. And again, a quick question came in. QuickJump setup displays. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's exactly what you're talking about. Is there will be presets to be able to set up how you want your channels.
Channel, master, post, all three types of meters you can tweak. Yeah. Zooms, presets, cycles, number of meters in a master or a post, all of that. It's just right here.
Yeah, all of that will be included in this next version already set up for you.
Yes, correct. Yep. So let's go back to I don't know, what do we want to do here? Let's go to VCAs for a second. We don't have a lot of time, but really quickly, I'm going to go, let me just jump into vocals. I'm going to attention this. I'm going to recall something that we've already built. I just want to show, I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to go into Pro Multiband, and I'm going to hit expand. And, oh, I didn't do that right. I actually want to go into, there we go. All kinds of fun stuff. So I wanted to show this because this is pretty cool. And this opens up, this now is possible because of the fact that you can have as many pages as you want. So I just did a relatively quick setup for Pro Multiband on faders. I just wanted to show it to you quickly. So band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4. Last page, you have your gains, right? And you have linking of bands. So let's just link a couple bands, right? You have crossovers. All right, there's your crossover. So the last page I think of like as the global, and then each page you've got all the good stuff, right? Threshold, depth, attack, release, slope, gain, right? And then again, the associated switch functions, is that band in or out? Are you soloing, isolating that band? And so we can let's take out band 1 and 4 real quick. Take out band 4. So now we have band 2 and 3 that are active. And, there's our one crossover that's useful. But now we're controlling band 3. And we can, get into everything. So just wanted to, quickly show. I think it's going to really be super powerful for how you can control more complex tools like this. And once you set it up, again, this is my take on it. The beautiful thing is you can set it up however you want, and it's yours, right? I think that's the really, really cool thing. There's some links. Okay. We are
we're right out of time, but is there any other minor additions to this version that you haven't touched on?
Yeah, there's always minor stuff. Let's see. What did we not get into much depth on? Let's see. We talked briefly about attention presets, which is really, kind of this concept of, just to take it a little bit further, attention Vox intro, right? And the default, the one preset says, I really want EQ and Dyne kind of primarily, right? That's kind of what it mostly says. But maybe I also want insert chain, because I want to quickly get into my inflator and control my inflator, right? And sends, which we showed. The second side is a flip of that conceptually. So it basically says, I want to bring the sends down, right? Versus insert chain up here. Or I want to go back to my primary, which is my first preset. Okay. The other thing with the maps that they've done, and I should mention this. Let's actually go back to. Where are we? Let's go back into, I don't know, percussion, I guess, and let's attention the congas. Okay. One thing I should mention. Let me go to home here for a second, and. This is Atmos stuff, but surround stuff. There is a new unified pan mapping as well, right? So if you go to pan and you go to custom, there's actually now the concept is to be able to create a map that works on any width, whether it's 5171, 712 Atmos, and it's consistent, right? And so that's a cool thing. So let's just bring this down so you can see it better. Why are you not coming down? Oh, is it? Oh, there we go. Sorry. So let's go back into this. Go back into pan and hit expand. Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay. So let's just unlink these real quick. So front, rear, right? There's your two knob panning. There's your height. We did some of this last week. There's your size. I can go to right front, right height, right size, LFE, center percentage, sides. Let's just go into 2D mode for a second. So side percentage for right, side percentage for left. This is, again, that's a peer, those are peer controls, right? So it's side or center, right, for both the right and left. The whole point of this, though, is that there's a new, also a new mapping for pan parameters for expand faders that is consistent and that will work and be preserved so that you can use it on any track. You build it once, you use it everywhere, right? That's the concept, okay? So that's one thing I wanted to mention. I think we're there. Any last questions about any of this stuff? I think it's really exciting. I think you know, you'll have to play with it, but it's really powerful because you could just map a couple things on the master module that you really want to get to quick, you know, like a decay time or something, just quickly, right? You just, hey, I really need that parameter. And then you've got your comprehensive 32, and then you've got your whatever, however deep you want to go, unlimited pages on faders with bypass, with switch functions. You can go completely bonkers with this. But I think it just gives you a super high level of control. And the idea that now we can move that over to U control, I think that's huge, because we know certainly lots of rooms with multiple rooms pre-production, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's excellent to be able to have the same level of control in different types of surfaces. Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, and appreciate it. And we'll maybe see you next month.